I'm going to go ahead and talk about Dawn a little bit in case y'all don't know anything about her. She's been doing bonsai for 25 years now. She's won the John Naka Award one time.
They only let you win one.
She's won Best Texas Native at the Lone Star Federation Bonsai Society shows.
2 years in a row?
2 years in a row. And she's also been to the Nationals in Rochester, New York. How many times have you been?
3.
3 times. Awesome. And what... I know you did the winged elm, not a winged elm, American elm forest.
American elm forest was my second entry. The first year was sea hibiscus. That was an imported sea hibiscus that I had continued to develop. The American elm forest was 31 trees, and they were all collected up near Memphis, Tennessee. And then last year I bit off way more than I could chew. I sent Bill Valvanus, a bunch of pictures so he could tell me which one to bring, and he said bring them all. So I had a large Brazilian rain tree. I had a Cascade Chinese elm, and then I had a Shohin display that was all tropicals. So yeah, don't go like that. That's too much to get ready at one time. I was the truck was overloaded too, but yeah. Yeah, it became a little exciting.
Did you take all those trees up there yourself? Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yes. Again, too much. We had to take out one of the back sheets of my expedition, and
that's a lot.
Yeah. I'm a good packer, but it was a little much. I'll never do that again.
I've heard some people hire actually delivery services.
Florida gets they hire a truck, and club members take turns driving. And they drive all the way up Florida, and they gather up trees the whole way they go. And the group from Houston, from one of the nurseries there, just south of Houston, they also have gone up a couple times with other people's trees. And then, of course, Ryan Neal makes his whole deal across.
Covered wagon story.
Yes, his covered wagon thing.
His covered wagon stories. It's interesting to hear about all that, stopping in each place. And he said they tetris them in there. Really articulate. And they get to Rochester and unpack them, and then y'all fly in there. But you drove them up there.
We drove them up there,
Did you drive your elm forest too?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's
and each day on the road, and we do it in 2.5 days. And each day on the road, more and more leaves turned yellow and started having to be plucked off. I was glad I left a lot. Anticipating that I would lose some on the way. I was glad I left more than I needed.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and just kind of look at these junipers that we got. I know this one. You said you feel like this is definitely a shimpaku. But,
right. No, it's definitely a shimpaku.
I don't know if it might be. I was thinking maybe kishu because it's so pom pom.
Right. That's the Ito Igawa, and these are the two different types of shimpaku. The other one is different. This one does make more of the rounded heads. It's a little finer foliage. It works for a little bit smaller, more delicate tree. This time of year, in the early fall, is a good time to work these trees. When you talk about conifers, one of the things that makes pines and junipers different is where their strength lies. And pine trees really have a lot of strength in their roots, whereas junipers, their strength is in their growing tips. And so one of the things that I don't like to do at the same time, if I don't have to, is trim too much and repot at the same time. You need more growing tips to make a juniper repot well. Now, everybody knows Guy Guidry in the past could take a Procumbens nana and do all kinds of styling stuff, repot it at the same time, and he could do it 365 days a year, too, and get away with it. But he was a professional. He had misters. And those Procumbens nanas weren't bald when he got through with them. They weren't real thin. He left a lot on them, and they did well because of that. So you just have to be a little careful with junipers because of that. If you take off a lot of foliage, that's not the time to repot them. Yet at the same time, if you want back budding, if you want things to happen farther back in the tree, you need to take off almost 70%, maybe 80% of the foliage. And if you leave 20 to 30% of the foliage, you get a lot stronger back bud. But that's a significant amount of taking energy from this tree. So what I would probably suggest with this tree, just because we're kind of past the fall a little bit and we're getting close to spring, is we'll take it back, but but not take it back as hard as if it was starting, a good warm spring. Yeah. I much prefer to do my potting in the fall because then they have all winter to grow roots, and they're not, it's not a freshly potted tree, and then we get our summers, which are so horrendous.
That would have been a question for me too. Is repotting wise, you said.
So if I separate them out, which is my preference, again, you can do a lot of things differently than what is cited as Bible or the way you should do it. There's ways to get around a lot of things, and you can get away with potting them in the spring. Of course you can. But is there a way that's easier on the tree? And I've just found better results with potting in the fall, where over the winter it's growing roots and it's happy, and then come spring when it's really getting to grow stronger, then go ahead and push it back pretty hard. The same thing, if you flip it, you can pot these in the spring, and then maybe right after the August and the heat of our summer, when they kind of go through their second spring in that September, October, and they pop some new growth, then push it back and let it pop again. But if I had to choose, it's not to repot and then give it our 100-degree summers. At least covering the pots, it really does make a difference in some of these trees and in these darker pots. If it's in full sun, I'll cover them with white T-shirt material, or I'll go to Lowe's and get a stack of white mechanic towels or whatever, or any of the Napa supplies or whatever, and it's just a whole stack of just cheap white cotton towels, and cover the pots just so that they don't have as much heat stress. Because when you feel these pots, especially if they're out in full sun, they get really, really hot.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And some of these, you've been to my house. I've got shade cloth structures. I've got places for that. But for the trees, no matter what the species that stay out in the full heat of July and August, I cover the pots.
Like on the bald cypresses even, a black screen and put over the top.
Yeah. Just trying to protect them a little bit. Whether it's, and of course you can protect the top of them from losing too much water with the sphagnum, but the pots themselves kind of have to have a little towel draped over them, and it makes a huge difference. So I started doing that. I didn't get near as many miserable trees, and I was lazy this summer because I had shoulder surgery, and my tridents especially, even though they were under shade cloth and things like that, they still weren't as happy as they were when I covered the pots.
Okay, well that's something we could definitely utilize at the nursery here. I guess something a little bit more reasonable because we have so many more trees to kind of set up with that. Because I know the little plastic pots, they can struggle in those even. So.
They're not going to get near as hot as a ceramic pot, though. And it depends on depth and all those kind of things. And if you water in the morning versus water in the afternoon. If you water in the morning, the soil's going to be moist longer. So that's nice, but a lot of working people can't. They water when they get home from work. So if they're going to be drier during the day, that little cover really, really helps, because the roots that end up touching this in the summer when it's really hot are not going to be happy roots. And that's where your feeder roots are, is out at the outside.
Valuable ones, because
those are
where the growing tips are going to happen.
Exactly.
Growth exists.
Exactly.
And that's something I'm trying to call to attention to some other people I've taught or have talked to about, what do I do with my, like even a bald cypress when you take it home, and it's in that black grow-up pot or something like that. Just even like wrapping it with a towel and stuff will keep the heat off there, because those roots will never touch the sides with that heat. They just don't like that. And then in the wintertime, even with the crepe myrtles, I'm taking my big crepe myrtles and I'm actually putting a towel around them on the stand, just so they're just a little bit more warm.
Right.
And the roots.
Because crepe myrtles are very close to being tropical. They're kind of a subtropical tree.
So a little bit of protection there. But that's good to know that we can do repot, not so much heavy work. We can do a lot of heavy work and then
wait for it to repot. Sure. I think that's just better. Especially, this is a very nice tree. It's been worked on before. It's got nice movement. It's a super little tree. It's not some whip out of the nursery that's in a gallon pot. So why not do that little extra? When we put a tree in a little bitty pot like this, why not do that little extra when the sun's really hot and put a little towel over it? So it's just, why not pick the better option? Yes, You can say, I've done it at different times, I've done it different ways, and I was successful. But what you may not be considering is, but would your tree have done even better if you'd have done it a little differently? Yeah. Like, not repot it in the spring where it gets that summer heat, and it rebounds better. Because if you pot it in the fall, and it's got all winter to grow a lot of roots, and then it goes to hot summer, that tree is going to do better. It's just going to handle the heat better. But one of the things as far as junipers that I learned from Ryan Neal, who, everybody knows, and if Ryan is a uber stylist, which he is, of course, he's also a great teacher. And I was fortunate enough in Houston to take a workshop with him on Shimpaku. And one of his ways of working through designs with these trees is pick a base, your nabari. Now, juniper are not known for the same nabari as your deciduous trees that you're going to see. Your trident maples or your Japanese maples and different deciduous trees. They're not going to make that same base. But we still want something that looks stable. We still want something that is stable and can support the tree and is going to give us some taper. So if we had a widest area, then that's what we're going to want to choose, even though it's not like deciduous nabari. So his suggestion was find your best nabari, number one. Find your best movement, number two. Of course, you can do this in any order. Find your best movement, and including if you need to tip the trunk or do whatever to find your best line of your trunk. And then find if you have an area of interest, and again, on something like a deciduous tree, it's going to be harder because you don't have the deadwood. But in junipers, you're going to have deadwood as a feature. It's commonly used in junipers. And if that feature is on the tree and you want to use it, then you have to take that into consideration. And so he starts every round of design with those three things in mind and tries to find the best front that will give you the combination of the best nabari and the best line and the best view of your whatever it is that is your that's going to lead your eye to, say, deadwood, whatever it is that's unusual about this tree, the live vein versus the dead vein, whatever that special thing is. Find the trunk that gives you kind of the average best of each. And so you don't just pick the best nabari because that might give you a straight-looking trunk or an unusual-looking trunk or a trunk that's leaning backwards. Don't just go with the best movement because it may be the worst of the base that looks and it ends up looking very unstable. And don't just pick on your deadwood because, again, if your line's not pretty, and if it doesn't look stable in the pot, it's still not going to be the best tree that it can be. So he's found over the years that if he takes all three of those into consideration, then once he decides what his front is, then the rest of it just kind of comes into play. Then you make the best tree out of what's left. And personally, because I've grown up around deciduous trees and not grown up in Colorado and, in Utah where all these beautiful junipers, different types of junipers grow, my eye has always been, design-wise, it's easier for me to picture a deciduous tree or a cypress tree or whatever because I've just seen so many of them. And I've always felt like I've had more problems with something like a juniper with design. And once I started, obviously you look at a lot of good trees and that's going to help you as well. But once he kind of explained that, it made a lot of sense to me, and the trees I've done since then it hasn't been so stressful. I felt like I had a plan. And it wasn't just, oh my God, what am I going to make out of this? So that I think is a good place to start. And do you have some chopsticks or toothpicks? And I've got some there too.
I've got some marker pieces over here. Actually, I got them in this pot right here. See, we can cut these up as much as you need to.
But it's just if you've got your little sticks, you can start deciding where and what may be the best front. And I think this tree from this view is probably where it was designed. Although I think there's other things that can be done with this tree. When we turn it, and I'll start it, say, on this side, and turn it slowly. I don't know if you can see if it needs something light behind it to see the Nabari area better.
You want to shine some light on it?
Maybe so.
Okay.
Whatever works. But the Nabari is wider somewhere in this area. And anytime we pick a front, the Nabari is going to be equally wide, exactly opposite it, 180 degrees opposite it. Well, that's not everything we pick Nabari for. So is there other interesting things here? Well, the deadwood starts, it's got some interesting things on that side. When we spin it around, it's got, not as much interest on this side. But these two fronts, as far as Nabari, would be, what we'd be looking at if we just took the width into consideration. But what else is there? Well, the line of the tree, and in fact, I think I'm going to go to the special features next just because it might be easiest. What are our special features? Well, obviously, this share coming through here and this deadwood here is all part of the special features of this tree. But as we come around, there's more. There's this split and hollow at this point of the tree. There's more deadwood behind the tree and actually more share up here. It's not bleached out very well, but that whole piece of share comes through here. So we have a live vein that comes from here and goes up, and the exact opposite. We've got the deadwood that comes all the way through to this little piece right here that's dead on this branch. So, and then we've got some gin up here. So we've got a lot of interest in this tree. And we need to figure out what's going to show off that interest the best. And if we look at it from the way it seemed to be potted from the front, this branch comes out real forward to me, and then splits kind of into the longhorn deal. And I'll put my hands behind it. Maybe you can see that deadwood a little bit better. But it really comes out and splits into a T. And I think that's less attractive than it could be. And also that it comes just right at you. There's going to be a better way to deal with this. When I continue to turn it, looking, this gets it from being an eye poker, but we still are almost a bar branch with this deadwood that's off to this side. So again, not super interesting. The line's not super interesting. So we just keep turning, and we come to an area where, we can follow this share very nicely from an angle up in here someplace. So now we just keep kind of looking, and I'm looking at it from the front, from you guys' angle. And I keep thinking that this has got some potential to it because it's got these hollows here. It's got the share that comes out to this side. This now becomes a back branch back here, so it's not the eye poker anymore. And we can still follow up live vein and deadwood. So we have, it's visual. I don't know if you can really, really see it, but this is the demarcation here of the live vein and the deadwood. So yeah, you can see it better in that light. So we do from someplace in this vicinity, we do see the deadwood and the live vein for a long time, which is nice. So I'm starting to feel like a little bit of a change for the front may be beneficial to this tree because I really this becoming a T, just kind of the longhorn kind of look is just a little bit too much. As a back branch, it doesn't bother me near as much.
You see any kind of tilting or angle?
And that's the next thing is where's the best line. So I've got these two as far as the widest in the Bari, but that doesn't necessarily, again, depending, but it's the widest, give or take. The best deadwood features, I'm kind of running maybe in here, or features in general, not just deadwood, but say the hollow trunk and being able to see this deadwood not poking you in the eye, and being able to see both the live vein and the dead vein most of the way. So that's one way of doing it. The other is, pretty much the opposite, but the opposite ends up with this eye poker deadwood. So we would really not want to use this dead front. We would want to cock it to the side one way or the other. And so right now I'm not going to mark the back side because I really don't want to use this in the front.
Would it be too pigeon-breasted to kind of put it, I'll just do mine. Just what I was looking at.
Well, sure.
You said you're looking for deadwood.
Sure.
This can always be reduced as far as its size. So I was kind of looking like this a little bit. Because you can get that little bit of that textural look to that deadwood there. Because it's old.
And you're still getting this little bit of a split here. You're getting some nice wide stability. And yes, this is coming off. This stuff is not necessarily going to be, and I got to go towards the people now, is not necessarily going to be an eye poker. It can be shortened. And so that's a possibility.
That would be based off of
right about there.
Yeah.
And it's got some interesting movement. So then it's like, okay, now where's the best line? And there's a couple of things that I keep looking at. And again, front or back or front, because the line is going to echo itself. It's going to be two-dimensionally. The line's going to be the same, just like the Nabari, 180 degrees. The line's going to be the same, but is it coming towards you? Is it going away from you? Is it pigeon breasting out towards you, or is it, doing the better turn? With this tree, you can really go both ways.
I like the feature of the deadwood. Look, almost ribbon-like.
Well, that's why we love junipers so much, and is to get that ribbon-like. And from this view, and again, all of these are going to be more of a pie shape until you really come across where exactly is your front. But if you can get it within a small radius, then whether it's this or whether it's that, you're once you get it down to this little radius, then you're just looking for the minutia that's going to make or break this tree, and how are you going to design it. But I think picking it up a little bit, I do think it's a little. I do like slants, but
maybe try a little bit of a.
I don't want to raise it up too much because I don't want this to end up coming, either a lot or a little kind of thing. And again, I'm looking for something of this nature.
The camera helps you put it into a picture that kind of looks.
Yeah. Somewhere in here, I'm kind of liking, which is going to be really hard.
And while Dawn is going through and tweaking her angles with all this, feel free to ask any questions. That's what this program is for. It's here to educate about bonsai, and also we can, kind of comb out all the stuff that people have questions about these certain species. Like I know I've got plenty of questions about junipers. I'm a lot more adept to working with deciduous species, of course, just like Dawn said she was, but she has gotten into this realm of conifers. So she's the one to be asking questions. If anyone's got questions, don't hesitate, for sure.
When I'm looking at this, and again, we're going to get that to the front so that you guys can, and then, Evan, if you want to kind of be able to see from one way or another.
From the corner. Yeah.
But looking at where you put your stick head on, pretty head on there.
Yeah.
This real big sweep, and then this branch can be moved. It's off of this piece of deadwood, and this branch can be moved. But I get almost a question mark look to it, you know?
Hey, you don't I see what you mean now.
And so
it's a little too straight at the bottom, but then way a lot of movement right there.
Yeah. Whereas if I start looking somewhere in this area, we've still got this nice movement, but this flattens out more, and you don't see this whole big question mark looking thing. If you go into that allows us to go into the branch that from this point of view is now an eye poker, and we have to bend it out of the way, which we can do some of, but it's pretty stiff, and we would need to bend it towards this piece of deadwood, which is going to be hard to do.
Turn it towards. Yeah,
but if we do right up in there, we catch this movement at a better angle, because some of it's front to back, some of it's side to side. One of the other things we really want to take into consideration when we're designing trees too is the three-dimensionality of some of these lines, especially with the trunk line, is we don't want just back and forth S. We don't want just front to back. We want it to really be interesting, very sinuous, very, that's what these species are known for. The junipers are not, in general, formal uprights. They have these crazy curves and beautiful, the environment has shaped them into these fantastic forms. And we don't want to, we want to be real careful of picking the view that ends up making it too two-dimensional. Too much two-dimensional.
I'm just seeing the movement that we could possibly get with wire.
Yeah.
And where things could end up. And
I'm thinking if this could come down even just this much, and maybe from here even.
That's pretty good.
We can stick one more small wedge on this side.
So that if we're both putting wire on there, I don't have to
timber. Yes. Then I'm looking at this. It's a little two-dimensional, but it's going back a little bit. It comes forward a little bit. I mean, you at home can see the left to right movement easily. But this is coming back a little bit, then it comes forward some, then it goes back again, and then we would bring this branch down and forward some. And that gives us some of this back and forth and not just smash two-dimensionality, although it would be hard to make this tree two-dimensional. It's got a lot of movement to it. But that's what makes it special. So then we've got a branch here that could be high, a branch here that could fill in basically something into a pad here, and then this whole thing would come down to, say, a pad like this. Then once we bring this down, then our gin back here is going to show.
Which that gin might be a little on the tall side.
Could be, although it's got to be above wherever our pad is. So the one thing about gin, you can glue it back. Yeah. But I tend to leave it long and live with it after a design, and then after I live with it a while, then it's like, it's got to go or whatever. But with gin, I try not to, just like trunk chops, you can't put that back on with glue. So sometimes when I've got a decision like, is this gin too tall, too straight, I might actually do have you ever done the bending with, you get it wet and with the heat? Yeah. If this was bent, say, here, then you see, I don't know if you see it from the front, but if you echoed this angle with this gin.
Almost like a lightning strike kind of look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's where I would go with that gin, is bending it about a third of the way up and getting.
And a note on that wood bending technique that Dawn's talking about, I usually Usually on a branch that has its bark stripped off, then you can throw wire on it right there.
Right. If it's a fresh gin, then absolutely. If it needs to point in a different direction or it needs movement, if you do it when you're creating that gin at that time when that branch is just dead, it was alive 30 seconds ago, then as it dies, it'll take that shape and you don't have to worry about it.
And so
but
that's a little bit more of an advanced technique.
In a lot of junipers, when they're being developed for trees, people are just cutting branches and allowing gin to happen. But since there's no final design, nobody knew that this was going to be a little obnoxious. But we do have a way of wetting and soaking that dead wood and getting it wet, and then heating it with a little propane torch and then getting it bent. So that's what I would think about doing if this is going to be our front, is just to take this into this direction here so that that gin looks like it's going in the same direction as the general direction of this trunk, and especially is mimicking the angle of this to the soil level. So then we drop this and try to bring it back some. Again, I don't, because it's December and we're right around the corner from a lot more growth. There's a little new growth on this tree. There's a little back budding going on. And I think we can come in and take out some of these actively growing sections, but I wouldn't take 70% of the greenery off this tree at this point. I would let it bend it, let it recover, and if it starts growing nice and strong in the spring, then start coming back harder with it. Again, one process at a time. It takes a little longer, but it's none of these things are made overnight. Then we've got this branch to use in the back. We've got this branch to use in the back. We can even, I don't even know if we need both of them. This could be a back branch. This could be gin. Because we can't put them back, we can wire it, live with it. If in the end we decide, that's too much. It's 3 equal-sized branches coming off at the end. It really is kind of too much. I think one of them could go, and I'd just gin that. And again, it's going to go the same, it's about the same angle as this back branch here. So, that would be my thinking. Again, none of this has to be done all at one time without make the changes you can with wire, get certain things kind of set, and then continue with the decision-making process. Better on, better off. Everybody knows the secret. Cover it with a cloth and see if you can live without it, that kind of thing. Take your time. We're so used to seeing people, personally, that are doing demos that just work so fast, and we're like, this is how I'm going to do it, and blah, blah, blah. You don't have to work at that speed. If you don't work on 20 trees a day or 3,000 trees a year, you're not there. I'm not there. And I think the more thought you put into it and the more time you take, the better your decisions are going to make. And you're not going to get it to a point where you get it and you've made all these big chops and you look at it, and a couple of days later, you start thinking, well, it really would have been better if I'd have tilted it this way, and maybe the line would be a little bit better if I'd have done this, and then you realize you took off a branch that could have been your top, and you can't fix it, or you got to wait for it to grow or something. So I think the more time we take to do this kind of decision making, the better trees we're going to produce. And the same thing with just picking the best time to repot it or the best time to cut it back hard so that the tree responds at its strongest. But we're just not going to do everything all at once real fast. We're going to make some decisions. We're going to live with it a few days. I at least find my decision-making process much better when I live with it a few days, some of the stuff in my collection 2 years, and then all of a sudden it comes to me. Yeah, I'm going in the right direction, but now I need to do this, or now I need to do this. And it's all a process. And like the old saying is, it's the journey, not the destination. Nothing is more true than bonsai with that. We're going to be tweaking our trees for the rest of their lives, hopefully. And so we're not going to end up with the last design on this tree. In 5 years, as it grows, it may be asking us to do something a little bit different, or we'll be refining something a little bit more. or our taste will change for the better and we'll see something a little bit better in the tree. So all of this is kind of starting. This tree had a lot of work done to it. It had a lot of curves. It had the charret. It's got the live vein. It's got a lot going for it. But just a change of angle, a little change of front, and hopefully we can improve this tree. And then as it recovers and grows, we can continue improving and make little changes as we need, make big changes as we need. But to take your time making those decisions, I think, really pays off in the end. So, what do you think, Evan, as far as, I would keep both of these and, make all of this a shorter back branch.
Yes.
And now I'm stuck, yeah.
You have back budding occurring.
Yeah, it's going on. So, I'd probably cut this back fairly hard, but not, ridiculously hard like that.
Like that.
But this branch has so much going on that we can really cut it back to here, or even cut it back to here. And I would leave a little bit of a gin just because.
So you want to see this cut up in here, and then gin that back to that shoulder right there?
With this shoulder or this shoulder? I'm going to vote. We're gonna gin it up to here.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut it right up in here and then gin. How long you want that gin to be, probably?
Well, if we gin it back up to here, if we make the
end
cut, the initial cut somewhere in here, then we'll cut it off and just leave an inch.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
And again, we'll rotate that around.
And show that cut.
This was, there was a lot of greenery on here, and we've got plenty of healthy growing stuff to just wire, get some sun, get some back budding, and we'll just get a little bit of.
So the next one we're going to be coming back to this one.
Yeah, and because it's got some back budding, but I do want to leave some strength to the branch. There is a little back bud here. There is a tiny, tiny little bud here. So we want to keep pulling energy. There's a couple of little back buds right here. But again, we have way too much out here. Because this is a thinner branch, I don't think we're going to gin anything right now. If we do anything, hopefully some of this buds out. We do have a little bitty bud there we'll be careful with. If we get some budding back here, then we're not, this is too thin to really gin and have it live for very long. But I would let's take it off. Let's leave these three. How about come out here?
Okay.
Yeah. And so we leave plenty of strength on the branch. It won't be ideal when we wire it. It's going to be too long, but we're going to get it some sunlight, and we're going to get some of these things to start where they're going to need to be. And we can chase this back as we get new buds along there.
So I guess the other one that's chaotic is this branch here that kind of comes out and then loops back around.
Right. And that's the one I'm thinking we probably don't need, because if one of the things too is we've got this branch, and then the one we were just fooling with, and the three of them come off almost the same size. I'm going to tilt it this way, and maybe you can see them better. Can you point them out?
Which ones are you talking
about? So
we're talking about the chaotic ones like this.
Yeah, that one, the one that's in your hand too.
And then this one down here
that's about the same size.
About separated from this.
And then the one we just cut.
So these were.
They're all coming off of this top.
All
together.
Yeah, they're coming out. This one part where this gin is pretty much one of the originating parts that was also.
Right. It was gin that was, basically cut back at that point, and three branches grew. And unfortunately, that's just too much at this area. It's going to end up with reverse taper. It's going to end up with some issues. With junipers, it's not as big a deal because we can always gin something and carve it smaller. But having all three of these come off at that spot is a little bothersome. What I would do for safety, if in the end I thought this is probably going to go and become a gin, I would leave it on, cut it, back to here, give or take, leave some greenery on it, see if it back buds. Just leave it for the health of the tree and as an emergency branch in case something happens to this. Because I really need this in my design, But if for some reason this breaks or dies, then this will take its place.
So you want to try to see if we can backbud but leave plenty of these
right.
growing
So
tops.
just taking off maybe, just this little top and
right to there.
Yeah. And maybe
that too.
Yeah. One of the things, you got scissors?
Yes.
One of the things with junipers too, in case y'all don't know, and I don't know, what's the close-up camera?
Just walk over.
Okay.
Come over a little bit
this
more.
Way?
There.
Oh, okay, I see it now. When you're cutting junipers and you look at these fans there we go. This pointing one way and looking another. But if you look at these individual branches, we don't want to just cut across the top and leave very few growing tops. What we want to do with a branch like this is cut the center out, but leaving a lot of growing tips. We're not just cutting flat across and going back down to green, but no growing tips. So again, when we're looking at a tuft like this, we may be able to take out several areas and take out the very center of this tuft, and then on another tuft here, take out the very center, and another tuft here, take out the very center. And by the time I do this a few times, I still have this entire tuft. But instead of just being haircutted across, it's got every tip that's left is intact and growing. We haven't just done this, haircut or plucking thing and then left very few actual growing tips. We want these tips of these branches to exist. So whenever we are trying to get some exposure and some sun to this type of, like that, then we're going to go into the inside and take out a center section, but leave the rest of the growing tips. And in this right here, if we take out that center section, the tips around it that we left are all growing and strong. So that's what we want to remember in junipers, and we'll be able to see it a lot better on that other juniper too.
This one's a lot closer.
Yeah, this has got such tiny, fine foliage. So I think right now, if you want to go ahead and wire these two, so that we can do something.
You start anchor, like come across anchor to this.
Yeah, I would get from here all the way, and again to show them kind of from a side view anyway, all of this, and then anchor it to here.
And is there any more drop that you want in this? Because I could split a little bit more.
I think that's going to be enough, and the reason I say that is I'm trying to mimic an angle, and the angle I'm trying to mimic here we go. When I bring this down is kind of the general angle here. So I don't want it a lot lower. I want these two angles to be about the same. So we're not going to have to drop it much.
Okay. Let me split this piece of deadwood right here. It's still connected. There we go. I just wanted to free it up. Now we have full.
Yeah, so if we can wire.
And then I'll do a thing with the wire here. I want to put a piece of wire in this spot so I can wedge it and make it easier to get the wire on there. Right. So what gauge do you think that will take?
Or you can just use this little sticky too. Is that too big?
No. So give us some space in there.
There it goes.
Let me just cut it down the size a little bit. Because what you probably can't see too well on the camera is the fact that deadwood.
The deadwood and the live vein are just side by side, very tight.
Yeah. So and this is a technique of bending is splitting that live vein from that deadwood, and you can get. There we go. I just wanted to get it a little
If we had, and again, if the camera can see it, but this deadwood right here you can see the separation here. But if this deadwood was still attached to this branch, it's going to prevent us from being able to bend this branch. So if you have a branch that has deadwood running through it and you need to bend it, it's going to be difficult without breaking that deadwood because it doesn't have the flexibility of your branch. But what you can do is separate the live branch from that bit of deadwood. It leaves you, again, a little bit of charre here because you've just taken that little dead section off. But that's okay. But now this entire branch is free to be bent.
And what size do you think?
Oh, you know me, I like big.
So go big like that.
Yeah, I would go big.
Do we have any questions on the stream, on the chat? Oh, really?
Do you have one size smaller than that, maybe?
Oh, you want to go a little bit smaller? Here, I'll let you.
Oh, that's fine.
Because I totally forgot last stream. I had really long hair compared to what I have now.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I probably didn't bring.
That's fine. I'm sure it's.
Let's go with the bigger one. And I will tell you guys that I'm a big fan of large wire because the reason being that it's going to protect your tree. Now, a lot of people do copper on their junipers and on their pines because we tend to leave the wire on a while. And the thing that makes copper so fabulous is that it work hardens. So you buy the annealed copper, it's heated and then allowed to cool slowly, and it makes it very soft as butter. It's actually easier to bend copper than it is to bend the aluminum. But you can use a much smaller gauge of copper because once you bend it, within a few minutes, it work hardens. And so it's going to hold your branch in place. The cat comes by and hits it. You drag a hose through it. It's not going to move if it's copper. Aluminum, we have to use a much bigger gauge to get the same holding capability. And we're not looking to show this tree with the wire that's going to be on it. We're looking to improve the tree. So just use a wire size that's going to hold and work. A larger wire, too, is a little bit more supportive of your bend and is less likely to make a tiny little wire scar like a smaller wire is going to dig in faster. So I really do like a bigger wire when I can get away with it and when
So would you say we'd run up this?
Yeah.
For that control? Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll end up running this to that little front branch with a smaller wire. But it's a little more obnoxious to have the bigger wire on it, but what's really obnoxious is you having to come back and reset every branch every other day because
it keeps flexing.
Something,
the wind.
Whether it's the cat, the wind, knocks off the table, whatever. And the more moving you're having to do back and forth, it's not good for the branch. And then you're not getting the interior heartwood to actually get into one position. You keep moving it back and forth because you have to keep putting it back into place.
I'm coming down this so you can do whatever you need to with this.
Yeah, that'll work.
Because we got a good anchor, but we ought as well run it to another.
Yeah, and I run it as far as I can decently run it. Again, we're not showing this tree with this wire. If we were going to show this tree, if it was ready and styling to just have to do these fine branches, we'd be using copper. We'd be trying to keep it very much where you can't see it. It's not noticeable and all of that. But when you're trying to get an initial styling on a tree or an initial styling for its new life, just use the bigger wire, and it'll hold for you, and you don't have to keep coming back and readjusting.
So we want another piece of wire.
Wires there to there.
Okay. And we'll need something obviously smaller, not as aggressive.
Yes. So I would think this is probably fine. My homemade wire caddy is the dollar store box with, I should hold it up, the dollar store box with the holes in it. And then what I've got my wire spooled on is welding wire spools that I get from our local welder. And I just run them through these holes and pull as I need. So there's only a million ways to do your wire, but this is cheap and keeps it sort of organized.
Yeah, I probably should invest in something like that because
it's so expensive. Free and, $3. $5 or something.
I just haven't gotten around to giving myself a proper wire caddy. I use whatever wire is available and I make it happen, and then I'll go to the next wire roll and cut it to pieces until I get the knots and tangles out. So.
Well, that becomes, I find when I'm sitting down and trying to do a wiring project that having them stay organized and untangled, I'm much faster. I don't get flustered by it. It's just one of those things that makes my day go better.
Yeah, it's a bad habit that I need to get out of for sure.
It was like the turntable thing. I have one of those Miko, I think is the name of the company, Miko Engineering maybe, that makes a turntable that's a stand that you can crank up or down. And when I started working on trees on that, I wired out a Chinese elm that had taken me a long time to wire it previously. And in, 3 hours that afternoon, I was done, and it was just because I could turn it to where I wanted it, and then I'd turn it, and then I'd pump it up, and then and it was just making yourself comfortable doing these procedures, whether it's your wire staying organized or your turntable making it easier for you rather than it's on top of the table and you're constantly turning your pot. Anything that you can do to make it easier lets you think better, I think. And I am not an organized person, but Bonsai has taught me that there is a payoff to getting a little organized.
Okay, so where do you want these to end up? I already see.
Well, and I love when you put on wire, and as you're wiring, you kind of put it where it needs to go.
Yes.
You're way ahead of the game.
The fact that I wedged this out a little bit too
made a big difference. Yeah. So, and again, where did we? So if we're gonna go somewhere off the corner, somewhere in here.
Yeah.
Keep looking. There we are. Let's see. There we go. Get my hands in here. I may have to do that with a plier, or I may have to have you do it. I sprained my thumb, and I'm just useless today.
If you can't get it going, then I'll see if I can match what you're trying to think.
Let's see. I just want to bring it down. I want to make it bend right in here. And I don't know if I can hold it with my finger and then bring it down. There you go. That's where I wanted it. And again, there's a little heartwood. I think. Okay, there you go. There you go.
A little bit more?
Just a touch if you can. Nice. So, getting it started in that direction. On the preview where you can kind of see. And then
hold the shoulder so it doesn't move on you.
This wire's more than my thumbs can take.
You want it down right there?
Yes. There you go. Good deal. Good deal.
So I opened that up wide.
Yes. Yes.
Nope.
it wasn't meant to be.
It was a piece of jam right at the in there.
And this one I'm going to flatten out a little bit by rolling it back so that this is more, even. All right.
And I can work on
some things.
wiring out that stuff if you see something that you want moved.
And like these two branches, we don't need both these branches. Trying to figure out, again, when you've got multiple branches, trying to figure out what's going to give us the least amount of issue. I think we'll take off this, and there is a little bud at the base, but that staggers these two branches a little bit, so they're not exactly bar branches. But yeah, if we could start putting a little bit of wire on this stuff, and again, when we're looking at these tufts, what we'll go in and do is just take out the center, but everything that I'm leaving around it is growing. And that's just going to open this up a little bit, let it get a little bit more sun, and let what's below it get a little bit more sun. Also, cutting back is going to, redistribute those auxins that, this is a signal that tells this little tree, we just lost the top, we've got to put more energy down. And in general, if this was the spring, I would be a little bit more aggressive. But right now, I'll just find the center of each of these little tufts and take them out. You can already see how this is starting to thin a little bit. And it will give the tree that signal, it'll let in the light, and encourage some back budding without being real aggressive with it. And as it recovers from what we're doing to it tonight, we can then take a step further in the spring.
And we're going to want to move this one as well, right here.
I think so. We'll kind of mimic this angle in case we use it. And then, I think in the end, if this branch makes it, it's a much more interesting branch. And we're not going to need these two coming off. This one's got foliage so much closer, it makes a better back branch.
I'll run you a good sized wire from here to here on this two. And while you're thinning that out, so we can get that. I can say this gauge would work again. Are there any questions in the chat? Anybody have anything to say about the tree or
about why I have a sprained thumb? Don't Christmas decorate on ladders. That's all I can say. Or if you do, make sure you know how many steps it is before you're on the ground. And don't take that last big step and tear your medial collateral ligament and sprain your thumb. It's really slowing down my bonsai right now. One of the things, too, about junipers and pine that we all know is we can't cut back to a branch that doesn't have any buds on it, or it will die and it will become gin. But we tend to see what's happened to this tree. It was very unhealthy when Evan got it. It's much healthier now, but you can see that all the growth is way out on these skinny branches. And over time, that's what's going to happen to a juniper unless you keep going in and doing this work of cutting out the centers of these growth areas, these branches, each of these tufts at the end of a branch. If you don't keep going in there and doing that, then the inside crotches of all these little branches are not going to get enough sunlight, they're not going to back bud, you're not going to be able to keep your growth in. This is a small tree. It's not shohin, but chuhin anyway. It's easily a one-person bonsai. And all of its foliage should be close to this trunk. We're not looking for branches that are coming way out because this is a small tree. And it's got deadwood features, and so we don't want to bring the eye way away from our deadwood features. So until we get to this branch, which is basically a design branch, everything else needs to be tight. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people have trouble with is in trying to get things to grow. We let them get, a little out of control, and then we end up a branch with all this greenery at the end and nothing here. And then we have to kind of wheel the branch around and kind of make it so that the greenery does what we want it to do. But when we do that, we're going to get some new buds, we're going to get some new growth, and in a year or two, we'll start developing this closer to the tree. So if you're developing stock, I guess what I'm trying to make a point of, when you're developing stock, don't let it get so heavy and so dense with foliage that all of your foliage is on the outside of the tree, and when you open it up and look, you've got all these runs of naked branches until you get to the foliage. Try to keep that opened up. Try to keep that either trimmed back, pinched back, so that you don't have all the internal die-off, because these things, if they bud when all of this is one big cloud of greenery, they're going to die because they don't get enough sunlight.
So you want to take this piece here and use it to kind of drop it down a little bit?
Yeah, kind of echo this branch.
And when we get to the end here, we have all this.
What I would tend to do is maybe, run this back this way, and then maybe turn this. Maybe if I do that first. And then get back to lay out some. And then, if it will take this like this.
It wants to.
Yeah, let's hold on a minute.
It's starting to cook. You're starting to get those tiny.
Yeah, a little bit of lines. But that's good enough.
Fine.
Yeah, that's good enough.
Let's see it from here. So yeah, this has really opened up this space here, a very, very good amount of open space now. Where all this stuff was just all up in the air here, and we got this one piece hanging out here, got a couple of these pieces.
Wire those and get them into places, but again, if we can point it towards the top, you can see now that the sun is going to get to the top of this tree. And all of these branches that are exposed to the sun will start popping buds, and we'll get more of this internal tight growth. And these branches like this, here's a beautiful little branch. I mean, it's a nothing branch. It's a little bitty, but it's got branching and tufts that are within 3 inches of the trunk. We want a lot of these little branches. We're done with this big stuff. We don't need any more big branches. Now we need this tree covered with the next size. And we need the greenery close in. And when we get that tight, then the little tree is really going to start looking like something. A little bit more. Okay. All right. All right.
So you
take a couple of these off that are just too much.
We've got this right here, and you said you want to just keep this one.
We're just going to keep it and it may back bud here, but just give it some movement. Give it something interesting to do.
Just move it around a little
bit. Just give it a little wiggle. One of the other design things that not only Ryan Neal talks about, but any of the, Bjorn, any of the good artists, is remaining consistent through your tree. So what that means is basically if you have a very straight trunked tree, you shouldn't just then all of a sudden put in lots and lots of crazy movement in the branches. For the most part, there's always the rules we can break. But again, for the most success, for the most of your trees, mimicking the amount of movement in the branches to the trunk is the better design idea. So since we have a lot of movement in this trunk, then giving the rest of the tree the same amount of, almost crazy movement is going to be consistent. It's going to look right. Some of these branches are too big to do what this trunk does, but if we can get even a little bit of movement in them, a little bit of interest, then the next layer of branches that are thinner, we can wire and get more movement again, and it'll look good. But we don't want to leave, and it's the same reason why we don't want to leave this straight gin here. We want to bend it and then get it also at an angle where it complements the trunk. So when you're designing a tree, try to keep consistent throughout it. I know a lot of artists that I paint with, same thing. If you've got a color palette that you're using, you can't just, use 10 different colors and then 20 different colors and 30 different colors. It's better if you have some color harmony and one color dominates your painting, and there's pieces of it everywhere, even when you don't expect it. Same thing with these trees. If you've got a dominant characteristic like very, very a lot of movement and things like that, then you want to continue that through the tree. And if you have something really straight right in the middle, it's just going to read funny. How did nature shape all of this? Well, wind and snow and this and that. Well, then what happened here? Well, I mean, it did die, but we could do something better with it to be more consistent with the rest of the tree.
I'm just going in and adding wire to various parts that can go back. We can go back and manipulate once Dawn's going around and done some thinning.
And again, I'm just taking the end, basically the tip of these little pom-poms out so that then the pom-pom is exposed to light and we'll get more budding. Again, we want more interior budding.
Stuff like that, just hanging out.
Yeah.
One of the most important parts. So you feeling confident in there?
Yeah. I think we're thin enough there. And then I'll kind of thin out some of these. The thinning allows you to wire easier. When you have a tree like this that has gotten a little grown out, you don't have a lot of growth from the trunk all the way up the branch. You don't have to be going in there to make it more naked to wire because it's already too naked. We want growth back in there. If you had a lot of interior growth where you have a branch come off, you want to give yourself a 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more, and pull off the little needles or the little scale growth that occurs there, because you don't want to just crush it when you put the wire on. But these branches are pretty naked, so we're just going around the little branches. We don't have to worry about crushing smaller growth on them. But if you had one that had some good tight growth, clean up at the base of where every branch comes off the next biggest branch, and it'll make it a lot easier to wire, and it'll also be better for the tree because you won't be crushing tissue that then it's thinking it needs to heal and just stresses the tree out more. And like I tell Evan all the time, I may spout some really genius stuff, but it's only because there are, a lot of good teachers out there, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to take workshops with some of these great teachers, and I have made every mistake that I, tell him about something I've learned, or, you don't want to do this, you don't want to do that. The reason I know it is because I've done it. I've worked too fast. I've not taken the time to clean up and open up my junipers so that they don't get no branches on the inside. I've done all of that. I'm like everybody else. I had a job. It was major. Had a business. And had emergency duty. Had all kinds of things. So I've been there. And it's not easy to do bonsai at a really high level when time is a problem. But over the years, I've found that if I take my time, in the end, I do better. One of the things, too, that Ryan Neal mentioned at Houston, it was an ABS meeting that was in conjunction with the Lone Star meeting, and the Texas Club hosted it and did a fabulous job with the material and everything else. But Ryan was working on a bald cypress, and he didn't just strip every little buddy branch up and down the trunk off and just style the big flat top that he was going for. He left a lot of little branches on that a lot of people who were watching him design that tree thought, I ought to cut that off. And one of the things he said to explain that was that we're all looking for age. And he said, I could take all this other extraneous stuff that I know 5 years from now I'm not going to be using. I could take it all off now and do my structural pruning and do all this carving and do all this stuff and make the tree look, say, 100 years old today. But he said, if I leave this stuff and allow it to help develop this tree and allow it on the tree to grow and help make some of the more interesting fissures in the trunk and help develop veins and, whatever. He said, in 5 years, if I did it the way you think you should, which is to make it finished today, he said that tree is not going to have the strength to develop in the next 5 years, as well as a tree that you've left more extraneous stuff on. And you can come in and cut it off at any time. And he says, I guarantee you I can make the 300-year-old tree in 5 years if I leave some of this stuff on and take it off as the tree recovers and do it in a stepwise fashion, versus if I do it all at the first styling and then just hope it, then fertilize it and try to get it to develop from what I've left, and I've left way less in this other method. And it makes sense. It's just, again, another thing that tells us that, we should take our time, and it is a journey. It isn't just producing a finished tree in a sitting, because none of them are going to be that darn good after one sitting. We've all watched Mark Nolanders make, trash look like treasure, but he's bringing branches from here, and he's, you have to do a lot of things that aren't great and you can get away with, but if you really do that to that tree at that point, it slows the development for the better tree in the long haul.
So all this will drop down here,
right.
And now, this is a possible crown.
Yeah, ish.
So it has potential to kind of
absolutely
start doing its
and some of these, and again with
bugging me.
It is, but at the same time, we just need to do something with it.
Here.
And we just need to place it a little bit more forward. And
I'm going to get these away on that one and this one here.
Yeah. What we'll probably do, it's too much. So if we take that much off of it and chase back some of this a little bit more, and again, we're not going to chase it back too much, but as we decide where these branches are going to go, we're going to decide how much we need to chase. But then laying these two down like this will start giving a little bit of movement. It'll start giving us our triangle. And the same thing with this, if these two can have a little bit of wire on them, and then we lay them down like this, then that's going to help with that version of a pad there.
Go in. So a little bit of silence has come through the tree here, but that's part of it too. Usually when we work on trees on our live stream here, I don't do nearly as much wiring as I'm doing here.
There's a lot of things to wire on this tree, and one of the other things I just can fill some void with. I found this out on a pine tree that I had, but it goes for any of these trees, really any bonsai, but especially something like a wild juniper, a wildly thick and full thing. This pine tree that I had, it was a cascade, and I had done all of the cambium pruning and all of the needle plucking and all of the selection of candles for like 3 years. So all of a sudden, I had a lot of pine tree. And, each main branch had a ton of stuff. And I got to the point where it's like, I don't even know where to start with designing and wiring now each main branch. I mean, I had my trunk line and I had these main branches coming off, but I just had so much stuff. And of course, with junipers and pines, what you cut off is not going to easily grow back. So I was just a little fried about styling this tree. And the artist, I was doing a workshop, and I thought, God, I'm going to bring it and let Kathy Shaner look at it. And I mean, she just looked at it, and she goes, well, how can I tell you anything? You need to clean this up. Oh, go in, and if there's 3 branches come off one spot, go to 2, and if, and pluck some of these needles and get some of this cleaned up. And sure enough, just the process of going through the tree and cleaning it up and getting the bases of the branches clean and getting excess old needles out and trimming obvious, multiple branches where I hadn't done really good picking buds and I had 4 branches coming off of one spot or 3 branches coming off of one spot. Once I cleaned it up, it was way easier to see the line and to see the design and then know what I needed to do. Then when I started wiring it, kind of like Evan on this tree, when you kind of have an idea where the branch needs to go, it's easier to wire it and bring it in that direction rather than just wiring straight and then doing all the bending. And so anyway, the cleanup and the ability to then really see your tree really is important. And so if you ever get to that point on designing a tree where you're just thinking, I don't even know where to go with this, start with some cleaning up and just simple questions. What Mike Lane said the other day was, Eric Weigert's always told him, if it's straight or boring, cut it off. Well, again, they deal with tropicals, and so they're very amenable to, you could just cut the whole thing off and it's going to grow a new one. But even on these trees that we have to be a little scared and careful of, not to cut off something that we wish would regrow because it's going to take time and it's not going to do that. But just getting in there and cleaning it and seeing it and then saying, okay, do I have 3 branches coming off and it's going to make a swelling? What do I have that really is not going to be used? And you get some of that out of the way, and then what's left that has interest or is in a good place and doesn't have something else that's making it a problem, then all of a sudden you can start seeing the things you need to make the smaller and more defined decisions.
I'm trying to get this.
Do what you need to do. If I cut my finger off, it won't be the first.
Well, I'm trying to imagine this branch over in here, or is it too wide? Because I'm starting to see
I don't think it's too wide. I just think that in the end we're probably gonna go with this. But it's gonna be long, but we'll just lighten this up.
Because I'm starting to see the crown can come off of this and this.
Yes. This will crown, and this is going to be a piece of it, but it's part of the back branch, so it's going to be part of a back crown, say with this here. So there'll be this crown coming to this crown, and then this will also be the top of this triangular crown.
So
once we get it there.
So we're getting to almost a dual trunk type ordeal here. So we've got one apex here and one apex here.
I think it'll all flow together, though. I think all of this is going to say have an angle to it, where this will be the highest. This will end up being somewhere in the middle, and will help fill this pad out with 3-dimensionality. But yeah, we'll have a pad here and here, and then this pad will run into that one. We'll bring some of this back. It'll pop up some stuff in here too.
Yeah.
Which it's going to do. I mean, Evan and I have talked about this before. You start designing junipers, and what you end up with is a bald top. because you're laying down the branches, you're doing all these things, and all of a sudden you're looking at the top of it going, I got nothing up there. But things will grow. And as they grow, you can start placing them and getting them to cover up certain things. I can bring this little guy back more, and it'll be happier. And I don't know if he's explained to you guys on other streams, but when we try to get some shortening with these juniper branches, you bring it towards the main branch and then back out again. Instead of, you don't just, you don't want a really big angle with these two branches coming off. You want to, if you have an angle, you want to bring it towards the main branch and then bring it away. And that section's going to be now shorter, so it's going to look better. It'll look like it's got stuff that's more on the inside.
I use those. I use that kind of little technique there. I call it like something very commonly used in just the regular world of art is just foreshortening.
Right.
Just
that's exactly how it
taking
happens.
a long line and giving it compression, making it appear to be, I guess, further away because of the dimension, how you're able to build out that compression to bring it inwards. I've done this a lot on stream where I'll pull my arm.
Right.
That's what that.
That's one way of doing it. Yeah, and the other way of doing it, if it's really long coming off of, say, my main trunk, if it's really long like that, if I come in and then go out, now my branch is shorter.
Yeah. And that's tucking it up like say like you're saying coming up the main trunk and also the main branch of that.
Same thing with the branches. Everything is echoed.
So I'll bring this back in a little bit, like you're saying there, and then this back in a little bit, just so that more light can get in here. And now the tree's got that, like Dawn was saying, that big open bald spot, but that is going to.
But it's going to, and some of this we can wire a little bit of this in here. We can wire a little bit of this.
Yeah, okay.
Really quick. And really, if you could slap a piece of, maybe from here to there or whatever, and just do this guy like that.
Okay.
I think that would be real helpful.
Let me get a piece of wire on here since I've cut it in my hand a little bit.
And just remembering, the three-dimensionality to your bends. So don't just bend them back and forth. In an S-curve, bend some of them up and down. What I find is if I do an S-curve and then, or some sort of three-dimensional, more of a spiral, and then come in with my pliers and do a couple of angular things, then I've got a branch that's really moving all over the place. So you don't want your branch just to move in two dimensions. You want it to go up and down. One of the ways you can put way more movement into a branch than you think you can with the wire that you have on it is if your wire is going in a clockwise rotation out to your branch, if you twist the branch as with that clockwise movement, it keeps your wire tight against the branch, but it also allows you to do more of that three-dimensional movement than if you're just going back and forth. If you give it a little bit of a roll as you're bending it, you get some real organic movements in there. And that's what we want, is stuff that looks like it was with this trunk the whole time.
Okay. This is going to be interesting. So I'm trying to get this piece of wire onto there. Almost said that word. Because I got in a predicament back
That word?
Yeah.
I'm the daughter of a sailor. It's okay.
Well, yeah, you can take a piece of, where's my pliers?
Here's pliers.
Yeah, if you want to kind of bend that to where it needs to be.
But is it anchored on?
I don't think it is.
No. You're going to have to come on to
Yeah. Okay.
The branch.
I was trying not to do that because it was getting real tight in there.
Yeah.
Alright. I'll do that one more time. With a longer piece of wire, obviously.
Cut the middle of that too. It's such a heavy wire, I can't bend it.
Yeah, it was
Go
a tight spot. So I'm going to have to come over. Yeah, right there. So I'm trying not to put a lot of pressure here. Branches are going to get a lot of pressure. And I said this stream was going to be fun, but this is a little more.
Come on, Evan, smile. You're having a blast.
It's a little bit more. There goes a piece of redwood.
No, it didn't.
Oh, it just kind of.
It made a little noise.
There goes another one right there. But these pieces down here, we were saying they were a little too long.
They were too long.
So
that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
So that works out a little bit.
There you go. If you want to finish it with the flyer, maybe that'll help you do it.
Oh. The last time I put wire this thick on a tree on string was on Lugaroo, and I styled that big bald cypress that's out there.
Right.
That was, and even Doug was kind of getting nervous a little bit because I put like
well, and
two
if some of
runs.
you guys, I don't know, if there's some women or people with a lot of arthritis and stuff, you can put two smaller wires, but still use the biggest wire your hand can handle. Obviously, if you're not being able to handle the wire, you're going to break more things than you want to. So go with a slightly smaller wire, but just run two side by side, and then split them at a convenient branch.
How much was that cost?
I think it was
like that. So I think this tree is getting to a pretty happy little place here as far as opening up the top.
Definitely getting that. As far as getting,
I mean, there's a lot more open space for sure. I can see the pads that need to be filled.
Right.
And some back budding going on that's going to be really nice.
Get rid of.
It's a little weird.
Where's the wire cutters?
Right here.
There are also branch cutters.
Yeah. I've mentioned that too, that this can double as a branch cutter too.
When something's in the way. But, and if y'all could start to see, what I really want is this to come down a lot flatter. But again, we just don't have a lot of greenery to cut to. All this greenery is on a 2-inch long or 1.5 inch long naked branch. But once we've done this procedure and all this starts getting more sun, we're going to get the back budding. We're going to be able to chase this stuff back and get, I don't know if you've got a whiteboard or a piece of paper or whatever.
To show something.
To just kind of, draw out where we're going with this puppy.
Oh.
Eventually.
We can. Do a doodle.
Do a doodle. That's what I do. I don't talk so well, so I have to draw.
I think I actually left this water in here too long. Did you put? No, you put that in there. I left it on there. So let's try and run that down. There we go. Okay. So you're trying.
I don't know if we need to come down maybe just a little bit. Just because we want, eventually, we want this to be the high point of the tree. And then we're going to come down to this area here. So that's going to be the angle. And again, that's kind of mimicking.
Put the whiteboard behind it too, so it's easy to see it like that.
Where this is coming, yeah. And eventually this is going to be flatter. So that, let's see, is this part of it? Yeah. Even if I just take that off, you can start kind of see the angle that we're going for here. And it'll get thinner at the bottom, but as we design some of this, it's going to have smaller little clouds, but this will be pretty much one cloud and another, and it's hopefully going to run into this. We'll have this cloud lower, and then this will be kind of the apex here. we've got a lot in the back going on, but basically all of that's going to end up being very small and chased back. This stuff's going to be kind of out of the picture. But right now, for the health of the tree, to keep drawing sap down these branches, to give us the strength that we need, I think that's a good start for this little tree. And see if I can kind of like that. So yeah, and again, we had it kind of cocked off of one. So I think.
Go ahead and turn it like all the way towards the camera so they can see how all those branches are laid.
Oh yeah, there's
a lot more airspace in there.
There's a lot of airspace, and we need branches to pop all back in there because the foliage on this tree is just way out at the ends of the branches, as you can see. It wasn't super healthy. It was allowed to grow and gain health, but now we don't have these interior branches. Now we're going to get them, and somewhere in there, and then if you just ignore this, these are the back branches that are going to go away, that are going to get out of the way. I don't know if we got anything white we can throw over them, but this slice here is going to be the main leader, and then this is going to be more of the. You can use my. There you go. I don't care.
So Dawn's talking about covering this branch.
Yeah, because eventually that's not going to be. Let's see. Now you're.
Now it's kind of.
Yeah, there you go. Move you away. So I think you can start to see where this tree is going to go. It's going to be, the movement's going to be coming back down almost in
here and then
a bit of a lightning bolt sort of thing coming back and forth and then shooting out this way. The top will stay low. We'll do something with this gin to get it to mimic the same angle as here. The big thing now is that some of the structural stuff has been done. We've lightened up, we've thinned up, we've pushed some auxins away so that we're going to get some interior budding. As the spring happens and all of that happens, we're just going to let the inside grow. Anything that's trying to make one of those long tufts, we're going to cut it. And we're just going to keep pushing the energy back into the tree, back into the tree. So anything that looks kind of like this in the spring, we're going to pinch out that center, cut it back to just a couple of little branchlets, and keep pushing the energy back towards the tree. Because this should be a much more compact tree than it is. It's just, we're not there yet. But now we've given it the start it needs to become that compact tree. And I look forward to seeing how this continues.
And as long as this tree sticks around the nursery, we will continue to work on this tree down the line. So I think we'll probably turn around and do a later kind of thinning out later on this coming season.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure it'll be probably late summer by the time it'll be filled out to that extent, probably.
I don't know, maybe late spring.
Maybe actually earlier. You can see that.
I mean,
we're feeding it high nitrogen.
Yep. Feed it, and again, if we don't let the energy go to the tips and make those little pointy tufts, if we keep punching out like this center's not been taken out, but if I just take out that center, it's going to keep pushing that growth back. So the ticket is, and that's where they become a little high maintenance, is you have to stay on them. You don't want, they're going to make their little cauliflower heads, and then they're going to start growing that elongation is going to come. You don't want to let that continue at all. You want to take that away and keep pushing that energy back. And the more of that elongation that happens, the more the little weak branches are going to die off, and we're not going to be getting where we want to go. So the next big thing is, yes, lots of sun, judicious fertilizer. We need to do a good bit of fertilizer, and then keep working on this to keep pushing it back, to keep any of those growing tips from starting to elongate, so that energy for elongation goes back into developing branches. And the more branches we get, and we're talking branches, this size, this little wired piece here. The rest of the tree just needs branches this size. That can grow in no time. That's a 1 or 2 year project, and this is going to be a totally different tree. And for those of you who are into bonsai and you like what you see here starting, then it's just a matter of continuing. and the tree is going to respond well to this, I do think. And then, maybe next fall, I would go ahead and put it in something where it sits at kind of the right angle so that the growth is right, and it's not so crazy as all the water's going to fall out of it. You can still water it at an angle. It probably needs to be set up a little bit forward, but anyway, it's just something in this neighborhood to put it in another, like a plastic pot or something that's just going to support it at the right angle so that the branches grow towards the sun appropriately. And then next fall, repot it in a little nicer pot, and if you've worked on it all spring and then at the end of the summer again, it's gonna deserve a nice pot.
And so we'll kind of move on to the other tree so they can kind of see that next step of it filling out. And your other tree that you brought from your personal collection, it's had a little bit of work done to it, and she's kind of mapped out what she's going to do with it. So we can kind of do a little bit more work on that and talk about styling that tree. Last note on this guy here, it is available on our online store. It is on the main page as a featured item, and it will remain the price that it is listed for, plus that 10% holiday discount. If you guys are interested in this little juniper here. But we look forward to working on this tree some more the longer it stays with us, and it will become a finer and finer piece of stuff, as Dawn said.
Definitely going to do well.
So tell us a little bit about this juniper, Dawn.
This juniper was purchased from Brussels Bonsai Nursery in Memphis, and it had been recently repotted when I got it. And of course, Memphis can get hot in the summer, but it came home to my super hot summer, and that's another reason why I really prefer to repot them in the fall, because it had gotten a spring repot, came home with me, and I had a lot of problems with this tree. It very well almost died. So I have way more gin. I have a lot of stuff going on. There was a branch in the back that I hated anyway, but all of this was live and had a whole nother head here. But it came off at a 90-degree angle, and it's just jet straight. And there is nothing jet straight about this tree. So this was a blessing in disguise, and basically now I'm just going to nub that back super short, and I don't have to look at it anymore.
Oh.
So
I was trying to check something.
Some of the things, this is the angle I've kind of decided on. And again, put sticks and help yourself figure out just where your new front's going to be. And I think I had it just a little bit off center, but the front's about right. If it's like this, the tree is a little bit more two-dimensional. It gets kind of flat. If I turn it just a bit, then I get more coming and going, and then this is the angle when I put in the stick at that angle. That's about the upright angle. And so with this tree, it's going to be sort of similar to the other tree in that all of this, now I've got a big wire just holding all of this together to get it out of my way when I was wiring some of that other stuff. And this is the other type of Shimpaku juniper with the coarser foliage. And you can see on this one the tufts that we're talking about. These long runners here. If I want this tree to back bud, I want to come back and shorten all of these to something else. I've got tufts, but it'll start back budding for me, and I'll start getting better and better filling, which is what I need. I need, just like that other tree, this one was so unhealthy for a while that I just let it go wild, so I don't have as much interior growth as I would like to have. But I have a lot of growth, as you can see. It's bounced back really nice. But because this tree's got so much more green on it and is so much more, I won't say that it's that much healthier than that other tree, but I do have a lot more small branches, things like that I could take off more on this tree and not feel like I'm going to cause it any harm. So weak branches will come off because I've got other branches. But, I've got branches out here like this. if I need to elongate a branch, if I need a branch to thicken, I need to let it do this. I need these long tufts to elongate and start building me a branch. But once they're in the place where they need to be, then it's just the opposite. I don't want this tree ever to look like this again, unless I'm growing a branch. If I need a branch to grow in and fill in a particular spot, then that's what I need. But if what I'm trying to do is compact the growth in, then I don't want this to be happening anymore. I want to start bringing this stuff back down. And way before it's grown this 6-inch shoot, I want to cut it when it just starts growing the shoot. You know, if it's an inch or two long and I can see that it's getting ready to run, that's when I want to do some of those. Now, this is structurally, I'm going to need a little branch out to here, so I'm just going to trim back some of the things. But my basic idea with this tree is again coming up and then the hard down that's going to be about the same angle as the general angle of the trunk is to the right, have a hard down coming back to the left at that same angle. So I'll be bringing this down, bringing some of these others smaller, and then everything on this side I'm going to try to make a lot tighter. It's probably twice as long as I want it, but again, I'm going to have to take a little time in pushing that back so that I get some budding and some foliage that's closer in. I have those naked branches because they were shaded out by all of this. You know, I'm healthy now, but it shaded out some branches. So where this one, the Nabari is pretty good here, and this angle change is not really going to change. If I bring the soil level up here, it's not really going to change that. But it helps the overall movement to me, and I need it up high enough where this doesn't become straight. So you keep looking at all those different things, and it's just minute changes, but as you go through your tree and you keep working on it, then you start seeing those little things. I want to bring this up to make this whole thing more stable. I mean, down like this, you know, this ends up being more of a horizontal line, and I didn't like that. And then it's a right angle coming up. So I just wanted to get enough lift where this isn't horizontal anymore, and this isn't as vertical, and this piece keeps your eye from thinking that it's too vertical. And then it comes back again, and it goes back, it comes forward. So that's how I kind of chose that front. This was the front anyway, but I've come just a few degrees over and with this angle a few degrees up. And so this branch here is going to be my lowest diving branch. So I'm going to leave some of these longer because this is where I need that length. And then this is going to be a much shorter little semi-crown above it. Trying to look through some things. And when we have, like, I don't know if you can see, but this little branch comes up. It comes up off the tree vertically. That's good. We don't want everything to be flat as our hand. That's one thing that we do when we wire. We want to wire things out and flat so that it gets the sun and gets air circulation. But as we mature a pad like that, our first wiring may be like this. But as we mature the pad, we want a few branches coming up this way, and then going ahead and becoming another little hand above it. And so that gives us a nice rounded crown, and not, we don't want this little pancake cloud, because that's not a cloud at all. It's just a pancake kind of pad. But if we can get a branch that comes off vertically and then a smaller version of this above it, then you start getting a rounded pad, and that looks more natural. And so I do have a little branch that does that. It comes off. I can wire it so that it looks better than the little elbow it is. But these are going to be my longer pieces. So I'm going to keep this the longest. So with these being the length that I need, I'm just going to be cutting those growing tips just enough to cause it. Now this one's going to be a top branch, so I can come back a little bit more. This one's going to be more of a top branch, so I can come back a little bit more. And that's going to give this whole thing a little bit more rounded feel. This branch here, it's further back, so I want to keep it, and it's vertical, it's on top of this branch. So all I need to do is shorten it, and then it's not going to be, and do a little bit of compression with some wire, and it's not going to be interfering with the majority of this branch. So we want to use these. We don't want to just cut off. Many books will say cut off everything that's going straight down and straight up. Not always. The straight down, yeah, it's not going to get sun. It's going to be weak. It's hanging. It will probably never, even if you wire it up, it'll probably never take off. But with these more vertical branches, especially if they come off at a nice angle and not just a 90-degree angle, but that's what wire's for, right? We make it a nice angle. Then it's just filler in the layers of these branches. One thing that you can do with junipers, if this is a drop branch, then this branch becomes a little piece, this branch becomes a little piece, this branch becomes, so that you've got 3 layers right here. And you can do that with wiring. So don't get rid of any branch that's close to the tree with greenery. This is a lot closer than this. I may eventually use this as my main, this is where the branch ends. I don't know. But, right now I need the length. But if I didn't, this is giving me more taper and giving me greenery closer to the tree. So the whole thing, again, when I've got this much going on, this much interesting trunk, this much deadwood, this much craziness, I don't then want these long branches that bring my eye out here. I want the greenery next to this exciting trunk so that you see. I don't want to cover up the exciting trunk, but I want to frame it so that this is what you're looking at. You're not looking at something that's out here. Sure. Sure. So one of the things with this tree, again, was cleaning it up. It was a bush before I started this project, and it's still got many more hours to go before I finally figure it out. But when I first set it on my turntable, I was like, here we go, I've got a bush. But starting to take out the stuff is going to have to come out that are bar branches, straight, stuff that's just in the way. Once you make that decision on your trunk and you get a design in your head, I'm going to go sweep up this way and then hard back this way and stop it here, then everything starts falling into place. If this is my main movement and I stop it here, then I don't need stuff equally out here. Why would I want a mustache, right? This is all going to come in tight, tight, tight. This is going to come in tight to the top. I don't need a tall tree. Why would this tree be tall? It's been compressed by nature, right? So all of this will end up tight down. And then I'll have this longer section here, which will be, that section that's going to give me a little bit of this excitement to come back. And then this will be more of a crown above it. But once, the more you clean it up and the more you see and you make that decision of what's my best Navarre, what's the interest in my tree, which is not just deadwood on this tree, but this crazy, live vein kind of thing going on with this trunk. And then what's the best movement and what's the best movement in the line of this trunk, then you start thinking, okay, well, I want to go opposite that. That's going to be a very strong design. Well, then I know I need to come in here. I know I need to stay tight here, and I know this. I need something to be elongated and come down this way to make that happen. And then you just start working towards that. It doesn't have to happen in a night. We just start working towards it. So some of this top stuff, I've got plenty greenery, plenty of it will come off because I don't need a lot on this top. I just need something that's going to tighten up and make a crown, but make a low crown. So if I need to, I'll be able to get in here and wire some of these little bitty branches and give them a little movement, but all of this is going to stay close down here. And I'm able to come back a little harder on this one because I started out with just so much more greenery. Sure.
So, like Dawn said, this is not going to happen in the night. This will probably take a couple of sessions, I'd say, of trimming it out, putting wire on every single branch up here.
A lot of wine.
Wine will help to help really comb through all the fine branching on this tree that she has really gotten developed on here from that same process you guys saw with the previous juniper, where we laid out all the branches like she was saying, and we've got these interior branches finally to work with to start building this nice lush canopy. We're going to have Dawn go through and do this tree, obviously not here tonight, but later on at her home, and we'll ask that she just include a photo, and we'll flash it in at the end, because we're recording this, and then this video will be uploaded onto YouTube, and you guys will get to see a after on this tree. This is a really awesome tree. It has a lot of really
got some stuff going on. I'm just glad it didn't die, because, we all kill trees. So I'm here to be a testament to that. Unfortunately.
So, well, that will do it for this evening. As far as Third Thursday Live, I hope that everyone got a little bit more information. As a good bit of information. There was a lot of juniper talk, a lot of styling, a lot of stuff that we don't typically get on our channel because we are usually just doing big deciduous trees or little deciduous trees. We had juniper shohin design a little while back, but also junipers are just a really good subject matter, especially for the beginner. And this is a really, really great beginner's material. We have several hundred of them in the ground growing actively right now.
Yes.
Going to be very twisty, very knotty, very similar to this one. Obviously, this one was grown a little bit, this one had probably about 8 to 10 years of solid growing.
Easily, easily.
So it just takes a little time to get to this point here, but it's totally doable. Like Dawn said, it's not a rush. All these things do happen in time, and good work comes from taking your time, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and I find I enjoy my trees. It's like, we all have our rose-colored glasses on, and I absolutely do. But even when I finally decide what I want it to look like, that's the tree I see when I walk out of my garden. I don't see that half-finished, half-grown, I got to fill in this. In my mind's eye, I'm looking at the great trunk. I'm looking at the movement. I'm going to bring some of this stuff down, and I can enjoy that. Yeah. Because in my mind's eye, I know I'm compressing all of this down. I know where it's going to go. And so it doesn't have to be all at once to the point where you weaken the tree or kill the tree or, again, repotting the tree too late in the spring and then having a hard summer hit. I learned that off of this tree. It was repotted. And it was repotted well. It was fine at Brussels. But our summers are and I'm south of you guys by a bit. I'm in the home of Thibodeau area. Some of our summers, we don't drop below 90 at night or 89 at night. And that's just really hard on some of these trees that were just repotted, especially juniper. So I really like the fall repot in them. I think they would just recover faster. Not that you can't do it the other way. I just think they recover faster and they take the summer better. You take a little bit of the risk out when you can repot them in the fall. I've always liked doing that, or I have learned to love doing that.
So
the hard way.
As we mentioned before, this is Dawn Keotting. She is a bonsai artist from Thibodeau. We're really happy to have her here with us this evening. My name is Evan Pardue, the manager and bonsai artist here at UnderhillBonsai.com.
And if you haven't been, you've missed out. They have some great stuff.
Really appreciate it. Wish you guys a happy holidays, and we'll see you all next time.